jumped 2.8 million over 3 years. Schulz did insist on inspecting the merchandise to ensure the quality and sometimes rejecting the products that didn't match the strip's content. For instance, when a Charlie Brown baseball glove was proposed, Schulz shot it down, stating, "What kid would want that? Charlie Brown couldn't catch a thing." On May 24, 1967, it was named Charles Schulz Day by Governor Ronald Reagan in California, who was a personal fan of the strip. He would proclaim, "Happiness is having Charles Schulz as a resident," with all those bucks rolling in. Schulz would start to be embarrassed by his income as it grew bigger, and even once stated no cartoonist could become a millionaire, though by the time he made that statement, he already was one. The strip continued to evolve, and readers cried when the Van Pelts moved. Schulz soon found himself compared to John Glenn, and big names started to write letters to him, from Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, and Yul Brynner. Other readers would ask requests, one even going so far to ask for $65,000, which Schulz gracefully refused. Meanwhile, Peanuts started to spread even further with Halloween and Thanksgiving special, which premiered on November 20th, 1973, with Charlie Brown and his friends celebrating Thanksgiving, with Linus leading the group in the prayer before the meal, recalling the original Thanksgiving by the Pilgrims. Strangely, a recent controversy came up about when viewers noticed that Franklin, the one black character in the group, sat on one side of the table by himself in a lawn chair, making some modern viewers believe it was a racist depiction, despite Charles Schulz's original assistancy being included to show a diverse group of fans of TV viewers. The special ended up winning an Emmy in 1974, and like the Christmas and Halloween specials, remains regular holiday viewing. Eventually, 75 specials would be produced in total, 16 with music by Vince Guaraldi, and most directed by Bill Melendez, who also ended up providing the voices for Snoopy and Woodstock, Snoopy's friend Bird, as Schulz could refuse to let animals speak like actual English. Instead, Melendez recorded some gibberish and sped it up for the cartoon. By 1967, Peanuts grossed $20 million in merchandise sales and then $50 million in 1969, before jumping to $150 million in 1971. That was time with Snoopy expanding as a character. He was notable as the only character who could kiss anyone in the strip. In February 1920, in the 1960 strip, and Snoopy's doghouse was moved to its iconic broadside view. It was originally presented in a 3/4 view where the reader could even see the entrance. It soon became apparent his thoughts reflected that of his creator, Charles Schulz, who had him fight the Red Baron in the summer of 1965. He also created a Snoopy dance, which he did as a joyous expression to torment Lucy. Much of Snoopy's personality was based on Schulz's dog Spike, and he soon became so popular he was written in as a candidate for president in both 1968 and 1972, which got so bad that the state of California had to make it illegal for a fictional character to be written in. Soon, Snoopy became the first animal to take over a human comic strip as his character continued to duel with the Red Baron, resulting in bullet holes in the side of the doghouse / Soupwith Camel, which worried some readers for Snoopy's safety. It wasn't long before popular culture followed, and Snoopy, along with the rest of the Peanuts gang, became ingrained in it as the Beatles were. Security Blanket made the Webster's Dictionary and references to Linus's blanket, while Happiness Is made Bartlett's familiar quotes. Good grief was soon a common phrase, and the Royal Guardsmen wrote the song Snoopy vs. the Red Baron in 1966, which shot to number 2 on the music charts that year, beat only by I Am a Believer by the Monkees. It resulted in the Royal Guardsmen producing more Peanuts-related songs, such as The Return of the Red Baron and Snoopy's Christmas. By 1959, the Corvair B-58 supersonic bombers were called Snoopy 1 and Snoopy 2. In the comic strip, Snoopy made it to the moon on March 10, 1969, preceding the actual moon landing, and which the Apollo 10 mission would nickname their command module Charlie Brown, while the lunar module was named Snoopy. So no, Snoopy did technically land on the moon first. On May 22nd, when the command module Charlie Brown docked with the lunar module Snoopy kissing Charlie Brown in the cartoon during the docking came in with the phrase, "Snoopy came safe from a perilous voyage." With this and all other examples, Peanuts had truly transcended even Walt Kelly's Pogo, which was mostly a reaction to the McCarthy era, but as a result, would only last 2 decades. Peanuts had truly become a timeless comic strip that would live forever. Back home, the Schultzes put their house up for sale in March 1963 for $440,000, but got no takers. It was a further sign of trouble in the marriage, and many noted they were not a tender couple and no longer physically affectionate. Joyce did take notice that Charles liked to get the attention of cute younger women, who was also putting a strain in their marriage. All the while, the Charles Schulz's professional career continued to soar. Once stating a cartoonist can never become a millionaire, He ended up making $1 million in 1 year in 1969 and then $3 million in 1971. The Peanuts empire expanded further with the musical You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown in 1967. Directed by Joseph Hardy with lyrics by Clark Gesner, it premiered on March 7, 1967, eventually performing 1,597 times for 4 years at Theater 80 on St. Mark's. It sold out nearly every show for a $2.3 million gross and would later be adapted for a TV special in 1973, broadcast on NBC. The show is played off and on theatrically ever since, with a 1999 revival being nominated and winning for Best Actor and Actress for a revival in a play at the Tony Awards. All this success brought more attention and fandom, with the average of 25 to 30 fans approaching him every time he attended an Oakland hockey game. He soon developed a hand signal with Joyce to how to avoid him. Nevertheless, he doggedly kept working on the strip and even stated he would be dead without it. By this point, his fandom was so huge, he sent Robert F. Kennedy's 10 children each an individual drawing after his assassination at their request, while also appearing on the cover of Time magazine twice. Joyce, meanwhile, poured herself into a new project with the Redwood Empire Ice Arena on April 28, 1969. It will be called Snoopyville and Snoopy's Town, while that's the arena locally. It came about with Charles and Joyce missing ice skating, being from Minnesota, and wanting a proper ice rink to go to. When the Schultzes moved, they originally joined the Santa Rosa Ice Arena, but when it went defunct, Joyce decided it would be her new project. On August 21st, 1967, they bought the land, expecting to have it built in 4 months at a cost of $177,000. All the while, a personal crisis hit the family when Meredith discovered the truth about her adoption, with her parents still lying about it. As a result, she started to act out, resulting in her being sent to the American school in Switzerland, only to have her further rebel when she got pregnant in 1968. At first, her parents planned to send her back to Minnesota, where she would quietly have a baby and give it up for adoption, but then she decided she would go to a clinic in Japan to have an abortion. Upon her return, Meredith would continue to act out and by 19 was married. With all this, Joyce threw herself into the arena. In the strip, Peanuts declared 1969 as the year of Lucy, though her supervision was shown to be lacking as the budget ballooned to $2,143,000. Edwin V. Doty was hired as general contractor, though John Van Dyke, the architect, doubted Doty was big enough for the job, though Joyce backed Doty. Joyce hiring top talent for crafting it, from the visual effects artists from the Planet of the Apes to make the trees, while sending photographers to get references in Switzerland for the alpine look. Carpenters crafted gingerbread shutters and chalet fronts to add to the aesthetic. She also went to the Oakland Coliseum, where she quizzed the management on arena design and maintenance. Plus, despite being an ice arena, Joyce wanted the atmosphere to be warm, stating, "This is California. It shouldn't be cold." Peanuts continued to soar and evolve, with Franklin, his first black character, being introduced on July 31st, 1968, with an added pathos of being the son of an army man serving in Vietnam. When he tells Charlie Brown this, he replies that his own dad served in the war too, but he wasn't sure which one. Likely a nod that his father, Charles Schulz, was a World War II veteran. Also of note, Franklin was shown to be the intellectual equivalent of Linus, the strip's smartest character, and like Linus, would often quote the Bible, mostly out of the Old Testament. Lila, Snoopy's first owner, also appeared, as Snoopy was now the full-on star of the strip. All the while, the Schultz marriage continued to fray. Many would note that Joyce was wonderful by herself, but around her husband she became shrill and demanding. Strangely, this seemed to fuel Peanuts, as Charles Schulz would state, "Unhappiness is funny." Many often wondered why he seemed so unhappy, but it seemed to him he was using that to fuel his strip. On the arena's opening, 1,700 spectators came, featuring Olympics figure skater Peggy Fleming, Joel Giardelli, the You're a Good Man Charlie Brown Company, and Vince Giardelli Planet of Music. Fleming was an instant hit, to the point that Snoopy developed a crush on her in the strip, and Joyce still found herself overshadowed by Schulz, as despite all the work she put into building the arena, many credited Schulz himself with the success. The arena's opening ended up tying in with the moon landing, further contributing to the Peanuts strip. Of course, Peanuts had another adventure to conquer. It was going to the movies. A Boy Named Charlie Brown film sold out to the Radio City Music Hall to a larger release on December 4th, 1969. Directed by Bill Melendez and written by Charles Schulz, it followed Charlie Brown's attempt to win a spelling bee contest. Budgeted at $1.1 million, it ended up making $12 million in ticket sales, along with generally positive reviews and an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song. It will be followed up by a sequel, Snoopy Come Home, in 1972, but to much less success. By the end of the 20th century, Charles Schulz would have 36 million books in print, making him the fourth best-selling author of the century. However, the arena lost $98,000 its first year, and after an audit by the IRS, it found Schulz owed $630,000 in back taxes. Being a proper Midwestern Republican, Schulz hated his hefty tax bill. However, as work on the arena continued with 10 more acres of land purchased on Hardy's Lane. Then, to continue to control his licensed works, Schulz formed the Charles M. Schulz Creative Design Corporation with Pat Lyle as secretary, Warren Lockhart as president, and Joyce as vice president. However, this professional change only masked for future upheaval in his personal life. On March 16, 1970, Charles Schulz met Tracy Claudius at the Warm Puppy coffee shop in the arena and fell in love with her. They started an affair and would claim during it that Joyce was leaving him. Charles would make the reference that his affair in the strip with Snoopy having a crush on another beagle with soft paws, as Tracy reportedly had soft hands, according to Schulz. Later that year, the Schultzes took a trip to Hawaii to try to save their marriage with family friends, but ultimately failed. When they returned home, Tracy informed Schulz he didn't want to be the other woman and ended the affair, but would still receive letters from him afterwards. According to Joyce, when she found out about the affair, what made it worse is that Charles never even apologized for it. The end of their marriage was in sight, and on June 1971, Coffee Lane was put up for sale, finally sold to the First Assembly of God of Santa Rosa for $800,000. On June 1972, they bought 1,000 acres of land on Chalk Hill Road outside of Harrodsburg, and on April 29th, he reportedly proposed to Tracy, but she turned him down. He even saw one of his old loves, Dina, after nearly 2 decades. Despite Tracy turning him down, Charles knew his marriage was effectively over, so he left Joyce to live in his studio, which strangely enough was where his mother-in-law also lived. This was reflected in the strip on August 2nd, 1971, when Lucy was kicked off the baseball team, and then on August 7th, Schroeder proclaims that now love has a chance. Most significantly, Charlie Brown's persistent stomach aches disappeared from the strip. While they would crop up maybe once or twice in the following decades, it was a device that was ultimately dropped. With his marriage over, Charles Schulz met Jenny Clyde at the Warm Puppy when she brought her $2 to come skating. A 33-year-old woman who was the co-chairman of Building a Better City Committee in Santa Rosa, she was a dynamic young woman that Charlie Brown soon became snooted with. On November 15th, he legally separated from Joyce, with the previous October having taken Janine on his first date. Joyce filed for divorce on December 11, 1972 in Superior Court of California in Sonoma County, requesting custody of their 5 children, spousal support, rights to the shared property, and attorney's fees. The kids found out about it, the parents' divorce in the news, with one headline stating, "It won't be for peanuts." At the same time, Janine separated from her husband on January 2, 1973. Meanwhile, Tracy, who had married someone else on July 1st, 1972, heard the news and was glad that Charles wouldn't be alone. For many, they actually faulted Joyce, believing that she was the one having the affair with Ed Doherty, the contractor who helped build the arena. While not true, it didn't help that Joyce married Ed shortly after divorcing Schulz, though both their kids approved of the pairing, as the outdoorsy Doherty, he hunted, fished, and was a former Army Air Corps pilot, was finally suited for Joyce. In Peanuts, Charles Schulz openly questioned his decision on February 18, 1973 in the strip. And in the same time in real life, he declined the Crosby Golf Tournament, one of his favorite golf events, over such misgivings. The February 23rd strip expressed further doubt, believing he had put his kids through torture, and happiness was not a source of humor. On June 11th, he did a strip of baseballs haunting Charlie Brown, ending with Charlie Brown wearing a sack over his head to hide the baseball stitching that was forming in his head. However, with the sack, he becomes the team leader he always aspired to be, only to eventually have it removed to see him completely turn back to normal. Then on April 8th, Jeannie's first influence in the strip came through Peppermint Patty, when she uttered the phrase, "Poor sweet baby," a phrase she used on Schulz. And we'll be leaving that strip point for now, and join me next week when we conclude the life of Charles Schulz as peanuts continue to rise, while Charles Schulz makes another personal change in his life. And now it is May 2nd, 2019, time for the favorite comic book of the week. Batman, number 70, by Tom King, Mikel Janin, and Jorge Fornes, which finds Batman finally waking up from his long nightmare story arc to begin a new one as he fights his way out of Gotham against many of his various villains. Great fun issue with Tom King showing this is a one angry Batman after that whole mess, and his rogues gallery just really doesn't stand a chance against him. In fact,